Are you a real estate investor looking to sharpen your skills or a newbie looking to become one? You're in the right place. Welcome to Where Should I Invest? Real Estate Investing in Canada with your host, Sarah Larby.
Barry, the one and only, welcome back. How are you?
I'm great. As you can see with the white wall behind me, I'm in prison. They let me do this podcast and I have to go back.
That's awesome. I love it. So I wanted to bring you on because you're working on many projects that are in different stages of construction and had many ups and downs. And for those of you that don't know Harry, he's my mentor. He's a real estate investor, developer, been doing this for 40 plus years, and also is a very big proponent of not just financial wealth, but also your health and relationships and everything else. So why don't you just give us a high level, maybe overview update on what you've been doing since the last time you were on the show?
I don't remember last time I was on the show, but I'm going to assume it was probably a year ago, year and a half ago, maybe a couple years ago. Well, like many of us, or probably all of us, COVID has changed the world. And one of the ways it's changed my world is dramatically slowed everything down in terms of development. We're finishing up a project in Coburg right now called Beachwalk Flats that we sold out about 3.5 years ago, should have delivered the product at least 2 years ago. And now we're looking at closings hopefully in March, April 2025. So we've just kind of been persevering. And I think one of my themes has been with many people I've had the privilege of kind of talking to and helping out throughout COVID and the interest rate hikes and the very significant correction in the real estate market is that one of the key ingredients is perseverance. Just continue to put one foot in front of the other, continue to believe in yourself, but don't give up. Don't stop 5 feet from the finish line. Don't lock in losses. Don't go with the lemmings off the cliff. So we've had to take our own advice. And in Coburg, all of our investors have done incredibly well. But Joe, my partner, and I, we're going to suffer a little bit because the cost of materials was up 40–50%. Interest rates are through the roof, and our carrying costs therefore through the roof. And when you have a project that's this long overdue, it's painful. So we are kind of focusing on being proud of what we've built, feeling good about delivering great value to our investors. And the kick in the head that we have to take on this one, we'll just have to make up in the next one. And that's just what it's like when you're playing Monopoly, right? You just got to put everything in perspective, recognize what's important, and just keep moving things forward.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like this project was definitely delayed and over budget, but it is what happens. And one of the things that you always say is, right, when you're like in the mud, you got to keep walking through it, and you have to play to win and not to lose. And there's many other great insights that you've provided along the years. But I think a lot of investors are feeling it, right? They're just not too sure how to keep maneuvering through. Like many people have sold a lot of their portfolios off. What insights can you give them? Because I mean, obviously it's not always, wonderful years. Like the last couple have been tough, I think, on everybody. But somebody that's, maybe not as experienced as you with 40 years, and this is the first time going through it, what are some tips or insights you can share?
Well, I think probably the biggest one for me, and this is just the way I live, so I don't want to come across like I'm preaching to people or belittling what problems or challenges they may feel they have, but I truly live with what I call a deathbed mentality. Life is fragile, life is finite. I'm 63 years old. My most precious asset is time. And I'm hoping I can live as long as my mom, and she's still rocking and rolling. She'll be dancing at her 110th birthday party. But the stuff that matters most is relationships and health and vitality and experiences. And this Monopoly game that we play, and in our little world, Sarah, that happens to be real estate. Other people could be a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker, a doctor. But you do that to generate something called revenue, so you can live a lifestyle and do the things that are important for you and your family. What happens is sometimes we lose perspective. So we get so focused on the money or the deals or the losses or the challenges, and what you focus on gets bigger, and it creates stress and anxiety, and you start to live your life like you have an unlimited bank account of time, and somehow this is the most important thing in the world, and it's not. Whether you drop dead and you're worth 10 billion or $10, it makes no difference. You're going to drop dead. And if you get to 90 or 95 years old and look back, one of your number one regrets will probably be that you took things way too seriously. So if you can live with a deathbed mentality, understand life is fragile and finite, pretend you're 95 years old now looking back, maybe then you're not going to focus so much on the problems, but you're going to focus on the opportunity and the perspective. Because I can tell you, as much as I've lost money in real estate deals, we lost $1.5 million in restaurants, I've lost many, many times. I've got my black belt in failures. I can tell you unequivocally, I would rather die playing the game than to fade away in the stands as a spectator. Playing the game is fun. With all the bruises, with all the breaks, with the losing of teeth, it's still fun because there's still an opportunity to get up tomorrow, play again, and maybe this time we're going to win. And I think to go into any game in life, any competition in life, thinking that you're going to win every single time, that you're going to perform at your highest level every single time, that things are always going to go your way every single time is delusional. You can't approach it that way. So with the deathbed mentality, it frames the perspective for me, big picture, but then I put things in the proper light when I go to play the game. And when I lose or I'm going through a tough time, it doesn't take me long to realize that a hug from one of my grandchildren or a date with my wife is going to make me feel 1,000% better in no time.
Yeah, you've always told me, right? People can easily afford to win, and as soon as they start losing, then their other side comes out. But you've one of the things I admire a lot about you is that you play the game, of course, but you also talk about the mentality, and you take the action with everything around it. So like maybe talk to us a little bit about your philosophy, with your mindset, with your fitness, your relationships, like, because I mean, you've been doing this for many, many years, and you're, like in a game where you're losing $1 million, or your, project is extended by a year and a half or more. Like, what is it that you do every day to stay, I guess, in check and focused?
It's interesting you say that. So being at it as long as I haven't met anybody that doesn't like cash and checks. Have you?
No.
I haven't met anybody that doesn't like splitting up wins or sipping champagne and celebrating. But character does come to the surface when you're splitting up losses. And it's interesting. I think it's a real test of who you are when you have to walk through a difficult time and still lead and still treat people with respect and still do the right thing. That is the kind of person that can go through that type of pain and still keep their integrity intact and honor people and put things in perspective. Those are the kind of people I want to hang with. And I do think to a certain degree that comes from adopting a philosophy. I'll give you a good example. And this is because of my age and stage of life, so forgive me for boring anybody that might be listening. But I'm 63 years old. So at 63 years old, a lot of people that I know, as a matter of fact, I just came back from a 2.5-hour hike the other day, and I was at Starbucks getting coffee. And when I was there was a group of gentlemen. Obviously, they used to work together. I'm going to say they're all about my age, and they're sitting around a table, and they're all sitting there talking. And I could hear the conversation, and they're all talking about the past. In other words, they're living their lives in the rearview mirror. Remember we did this. Remember we did that. Remember this deal. Remember that. And they're kind of sitting there drinking their coffees, and life is going by. But to me, there was no future plans, goals, hope. They were kind of celebrating yesterday without having any plans for tomorrow. And I believe that contributes to decline. Mm-hmm. As human beings, we are built to be productive. We are built to create meaning. We are built to make a difference. And the human body doesn't understand how old it is. It just understands whether it's needed or not. So when you push yourself physically and mentally every single day, you can live your life even at my stage, where there's exciting things to look forward to, deals, opportunities, challenges, triathlons, new experiences, because I'm trying to live my life that the end for me will be a cliff and not a slow decline on a hill. And the way you make your end a cliff is by pushing yourself physically and mentally, being engaged, being productive. In other words, I'd rather expire than retire. I want to create meaning in my life, push myself, hang out with great people. I don't care if you're 33 or 93. I just want to know that you're excited about the future, and you're not going to sit there talking to me about the medications you're on, or how many creams you have to put on your legs at night. I don't want to hear about it. I want to, and when you focus on those things, what you focus on gets bigger and becomes a bigger problem. So I think one of the things that really has helped me, and the philosophy that's helped me, is just being as excited and as engaged and as curious at 63 as I was at 23.
Absolutely. One of the things, I think that is very intriguing for me. I mean, you're like one of my mentors, but I don't, I know you had a mentor in the past, but you read, you listen to a lot of people. Like, who are some of your top influencers that have, helped guide you with your mindset and the way of thinking?
Well, actually, I probably didn't answer your last question. I went off on a tangent, but the way I operate is I focus on maintaining my inner circle relationships. So date my wife, make sure I have a regular relationship with my mom and my father-in-law, my grandchildren, my children. In other words, I block out that time to invest in the meaningful relationships. One of the number one things that people regret when they get older is not reaching out to maintain meaningful relationships. Every single day I work out 7 days a week. I love people that say to me, oh yeah, I work out, I take care of myself. I work out twice a week. And I'm thinking, well, your body doesn't know. Like, if you're only working out twice a week, what about the other 5 days? You're giving gravity a foothold. You're allowing decline and things to kind of rust those other days. So I work out 7 days a week. Now I do have balance. I do make, weight certain and cardio and high intensity and yoga and hiking and so on, but I mix it up. But I'm always sending the message to my body that, hey,
That you're
you're
moving.
needing,
Mhm.
and I want to make sure that I can hold off taking pills for as long as I can. The only prescription I want to take is the gyms that I attend on a daily basis. Every single morning, I'm up usually around 5:30. I get my coffee and I weed and feed my mind. I'm a simple guy, and probably the biggest observation, because I've been a student of this stuff since I was in my 20s. When I was a young salesman, I had Wayne Dyer and Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar and Dennis Waitley and John Maxwell and all these guys in my car talking at me 8 hours a day while I drove around. And I've created a mindset where my automatic knee-jerk reaction is positive. My automatic knee-jerk reaction is a solvable problem is a gift from God. If it's solvable, I'm good. The only thing that's a problem for Harry James is if somebody I love is in the back of an ambulance. But solvable problems are what entrepreneurs get paid for. So I have a mindset to lean into problems, to lean into difficult financial situations, to lean into situations, because the reward is when you persevere and you come up with creative solutions, the reward is you accomplish something that contributes to your net worth, to your lifestyle, and most importantly, to helping other people. So I work on my relationships, my mind, my body, and of course, I don't want to get religious, but spiritual. We all have a spiritual side to us. And the spiritual aspect of my journey is I always try to leave people better than I found them. I want to inspire and encourage anywhere I can, even in a small interaction with a clerk at a store, somebody I meet on the street. We're all connected as human beings. I don't care if you're worth 20 billion or 20 bucks. Who you are is more important to me than what you're worth or what you drive or where you live. And I think if most of us were, well, if all of us were kinder to each other and had that energy of really caring about each other, I think the world will be a better place for our children and our grandchildren. And I think we have an obligation to do that. So again, nothing to do with business, but it's how we navigate and how we go through life.
For sure. I know you watch some YouTube from, some of the thoughts, people that have provided lots of insights in the past. And, who are some of those people that you would say, okay, if they don't have access to somebody like you, that they can maybe, read from or learn from or watch?
That's what's so exciting, Sarah, and I'm so glad you mentioned that, because again, I'm not answering your questions. I'm going off on tangents. I should probably cut back on coffee. But here's the
It's all good.
Bob Proctor was in his 80s. Bob Proctor is one of my mentors, somebody that wanted to expire, not retire. As a matter of fact, when Bob was asked if are you going to retire, you should hear his answer. It's on YouTube. It's quite humorous. But Bob Proctor, Jimmy Pattison from Vancouver, who I believe is about 94 years old and still gets in the car and oversees his businesses every single day. What's the pattern? These guys are engaged, passionate, contributing, developing. And what I do is Bob Proctor, there's one I listen to every day called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. What I do is I study material, ingest it, but then I digest it, memorize it, and when I find gold nuggets that resonate with me, I kind of I kind of glean them into my DNA. So there's people that say that they've read 100 books or 50 books or 30 books. I read just 2, 3, 4, and study the material, and I study it daily. So I'm constantly repeating the same information because I'm kind of gravitating towards stuff that I like, and I'm making sure that the program in my mind is giving me the perspective and the mindset to operate at the level and achieve the things that I want to achieve. Another great one is Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, I believe. This stuff is old, but as relevant today as it ever was. And it's the power of the self-image that we have of ourselves. If we don't feel worthy of a certain level of success, certain finances, certain relationships, then we will subliminally sabotage it. Now, the only way that you can become worthy or feel worthy of the life that you desire is by changing your program. And the only way you can change your programming is by study, daily repetition. In other words, doing the self-image work, doing the work on your self-esteem, doing the work on loving yourself and forgiving yourself and surrounding yourself with people that believe in you and that will cheer you on. Now, that'll sound, again, maybe to some people listening, airy-fairy and not very substantive, but if people will look into it, what's cool is all of this is free, Sarah, on the internet. You don't need to spend $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 to go to a workshop. You don't have to spend $2,000, $3,000 a month on a mentor. If you are motivated to become the best version of yourself, everything is available for free at your fingertips on the internet or through a $20 or $15 book. That's what's so exciting about it. And when you do the work, when you investigate and make sure it's substantive, it stands up to scrutiny and people have tried it and it's true and tested, and you start to apply that to your life, you start to see some very significant differences very, very quickly as you go through your journey. It really is an amazing process to go through. And people say, well, what do you mean programming, Harry? Look, we are 1/3 of our parents, and then 2/3 of the people we've met, the books we've read, the education we've had, and the places that we've worked for. That is baked in. Only way to change that is by studying new materials, having a true meeting with the person in the mirror and deciding what it is you want out of your life, and then taking the daily steps every day to study and incrementally move that ball down the field towards where you want to go.
Yeah, definitely great insights. And and I'm sure it's also like, just to let everybody know too, like you've coached, you've mentored, you've met many people, and I think you have some great success stories as well of people that you've helped that were maybe thinking small, and then over the years, working with them and helping them, flourished. Can you give us like an example? Because maybe somebody that's thinking about that today, they're like, oh, you know what, I could probably never get there. Like I'm too far gone, or too far, in their negative thoughts or whatnot.
Absolutely. I mean, I can think of a few people right off the top of my head. I can think of a gentleman right now, after his father died about 5-6 years ago. He came to one of my vital signs workshops, which is, that philosophy, which I'll touch on in a moment. And he was in a very low place. And what I noticed before I share what he did, anybody that is going through a difficult time or is weighed or anchored down, there's one of 4 things going on in their life, or a combination of all 4 things. Number 1, in their inner circle relationships, something is broken. They either have a problem with a person in the mirror, in other words, they don't forgive themselves, they've got guilt or shame, or there's an inner relationship, spouse, children, business partner that's broken. In other words, the relationship is toxic. And if that's the case, no matter how hard you try, it's very difficult to perform at an optimum level. The first thing that has to happen is that relationship has to be healed. There has to be a reconciliation, forgiveness, counseling, something, because the human beings, when we operate at the optimum level, our relationships, our key inner circle relationships, and thankfully there's usually only 3 or 4 of them, they need to be a 7 or 8 out of 10. If one of those relationships is a 1 or 2 out of 10, it'll anchor that person down and will impede their ability to live the life that they want. If you go on to spiritual, a lot of people that are suffering, they don't have any meaning in their life. They're kind of living this, what does it all mean? What I do doesn't mean anything. I'm not really contributing anything. I'm not doing anything that's going to outlive me. So I'm not talking about a specific religion, but I'm talking about people need to come up with a philosophy, a meaning, something of substance that inspires them. When you go to the Asian countries, it's often the people in their 90s that are passing on their wisdom to the next generation that keeps them healthy and vibrant well into their latter years. That meaning, that connection, feeling that they're contributing something is so critically important. So if we're walking around with that void that we don't have meaning in our lives, it's going to anchor us down and impede our ability to perform at an optimal level. Finances. Yes, the best things in life are free. But if your financial house is in disarray and you are physically in the backyard with your kids, but you're trying to mentally figure out how you're going to make your mortgage payment, you might be physically there, you won't be mentally there, and it's going to be eating away at you. So finances, it's not you have to fix everything, but you have to have a direction. You have to have some clarity on how you are either going to get out of the current situation you're in, or how you're going to make the decisions and make the transactions to bring your life to the level that you want it to be. So if you don't have any type of direction financially, it will, again, I've seen people financially that are so stressed that they literally are in a state of inertia. So relationship, spiritual, financial, and of course, physical. Everybody that I've worked with, if any of them have had any physical ailments, diabetes, 30, 40 pounds overweight, breathing issues, no matter how good their intentions are or how good their attitude is, the physical impediments are going to hold them back. You don't sleep well. You don't think clearly. You can't perform with the type of energy you want to have. So relationship, spiritual, physical, financial, anybody that I've worked with, the first four, those are the four things I'm looking at. And in this particular case, the gentleman I was working with, his biggest issue was physical. He was about 40 pounds overweight. He was just told he was borderline diabetes. He didn't feel good about himself. He didn't feel when he walked into a room that he was presenting the best version of himself. Within a year, he had lost 30 pounds. He went to MedCam for a complete physical, got on the training regime, got a personal trainer, went into cardio, and all of a sudden he had a bounce and a step in energy that he had when he was in his 20s and 30s. What did that spill over into? It spilled over into business confidence, relationship confidence. So that one ailment that he had on the physical side, once he rectified that, it had a very positive effect on all of the other vital signs across the road. Relationship, spiritual, physical, and financial. And he harnessed that energy and still does to this day. I just saw him not too long ago. The nice thing about the vital signs philosophy is it's so simple, but it affects all human beings. If you look at anybody, I want you to think right now, Sarah, of somebody in your life that's going through a very difficult time. And I promise you, if you step back and say, okay, relationship, spiritual, physical, financial, what is it? I guarantee you one of those is going to stand out as being the 1 or 2 out of 10 that they need to fix. Maybe they're going through a divorce. You know, maybe they have an elderly parent that's not well. Maybe they've just gone through a bankruptcy. But that one element can really toxically hold that individual down and prevent them from performing. The key to the vital signs philosophy is, okay, how do you perform notwithstanding having problems in life? Because we all have challenges and problems on a daily basis. So how do you perform at an optimum level, notwithstanding the circumstances? How can you perform at an optimum level and not be a pop can on the wave of circumstance? And that's what we've worked with and seen great results with people over the years by taking ownership of their personal lives and doing the things on a daily basis to ensure that they could perform and put on the emotional blinders and create the life that they dream of.
Yeah, and it's super important. And I know we were talking about this on Friday when we saw each other about potentially offering something in Bahamas and at the resort where, you know, you can also share more information and knowledge and insights on the vital signs.
Yeah, and again, I don't want this to come across like a commercial because, as you know, this is not what I do for a living. How I got into sharing vital signs and mentoring some people is because this is how I live every day. This is what I do. I'm just an entrepreneur that's trying to figure it out like anybody else, making his mistakes on a daily basis. But what I did find is over the years when I've spoken at conferences or spoken or helped out people here and there that have asked me, they were always more interested in how I built a life balance as opposed to how I built a business. In other words, how did I do both simultaneously? It is very much the vital signs philosophy that helped me do that. So what you and I have found as we continue to build businesses together. We have the Inspire Beach Resort. Joe and I are doing developments. We manage a portfolio. I'm a partner with my son in an employee benefits firm. So I'm constantly rubbing shoulders with people at all different ages and stages of life. And as you can probably tell, it's not just the coffee. I am very enthusiastic. I do very, very much love life, my job, my family. Not that I don't have issues, because I could use a therapist like anybody else. But the point is, I am excited. And I am excited about the future. I'm not living my life in the rearview mirror. And when people see that energy and feel that energy, they're saying, "Hey, Harry, how do you do that?" And so I either do a one-on-one, or the most effective way to do it is we'll have the Live Real events. We do the Inspired Tuesdays. We've had events at our Inspired Beach Resort. And what you and I talked about the other day was, look, my wife and I are fortunate to have a lovely place down in Bahamas. I'm thinking of hosting a vital signs conference maybe twice a year down in Bahamas, where you get an intimate group of people. You kind of walk through the philosophy, walk through the daily rituals that I go through, the books and the materials that have helped me develop my mindset, and really just enjoy a great environment with some like-minded people. And cool things always happen when you meet new people, and you take your face mask off and you put your ego at the door. You make yourself vulnerable. That's when real connection happens, and that's when real personal growth can take place.
Absolutely. Now, we don't have any details. It was just a conversation that we started having, but I think it's a great way to.
Yeah, you make me sound like I'm doing a commercial, Sarah.
No, but you know what we'll do is as we progress and we iron out the details, we'll add it. So stay tuned for that. But you've also gone through your fair shares. You've had many ups, and obviously you're here today, still in real estate, because the majority of what you've been doing has, turned around and been successful over time. But maybe if you don't mind sharing, something that was hard for you in the past in terms of a project or a deal that you've done, and just so people can see the extent of it's not just you had to, I don't know, replace a bunch of stolen HRV units as an example that we're dealing with right now, but you've had some big losses over the years too, many big wins. But are you able to share a little, maybe a story about one of the deals that just went sideways?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are some, I'm trying to be real honest. I actually had a nice compliment from somebody the other day that went to my website, Harry James Enterprises. And they said, I love how when you wrote on your website about your businesses, you're being authentic about some of your losses and some of your failures. And it was nice to hear. To me, why wouldn't you be honest? My goodness, it would be a complete facade to say that everything you do works out all the time. But it was just nice feedback to get in that. I think everybody has made the mistake of looking around saying, "Oh, that person over there doesn't have the same challenges that I have," or "that person over there, if they had to deal with what I was dealing with, there's no way that they could do what they're doing." And that's what's cool about being vulnerable, because when you are vulnerable and you open up, you realize, wow, some people have had some real tough things to deal with, and somehow through it all, they still push through and make some things happen. So. I certainly haven't dealt with some of the things that many people on this planet have dealt with, but I certainly have had my share of failures and stresses, and also feeling like a fraud because, I graduated grade 13. I started working full time at Canada Trust, and I became an entrepreneur when I was 22 years old, and I've just tried to figure it out as I went. And so, to a certain degree, I think maybe I always felt like maybe somebody's going to find out I don't know what I'm doing. Or, if I had a degree, I'd be maybe I wouldn't be making all these mistakes. And you kind of go through that. And the older you get, the less you think that way. But the reality is, one of my biggest, scary moments was I was in my 40s, running a very successful financial planning practice, but I was doing my very first real estate development in Cobourg, Ontario. And I was in with a partner. And the first phase went well. And then it was 2007, we were going on to the second phase, and we were supposed to build a boutique hotel. And I just had a gut feel that things were not good. The economy wasn't going well. I could feel it with my clients. I could feel it with some things that were happening. And I said to my partner at the time, listen, we can't keep moving forward. We got to shut this down and kind of lick our wounds and kind of ride out the storm. Now, I don't know, I'm not the smartest guy around, but somehow, believe it or not, that intuition led to the mortgage meltdown in the U.S. That ultimately became a movie. So it was just before that. My partner, however, being a developer, was very, very upset. He wanted to keep moving forward, and it became a very, very significant disagreement. And there's two sides to every story, so I don't want to get into all that and cast aspersions. But the point is, I went into a period for 6 years where it looked like I might have to go bankrupt if things went sideways. I had a lot of people were in investments that knew me. And I wanted to make sure that I took care of all those people, even if I had to cash out everything I owned or sell my business. Just so happens I did sell my business at the time, so I was able to pay everybody out and protect them. It was interesting though, Sarah, when I had to sit my wife down back in 2007 and saying, honey, we sold our business, but I have to give the first $1 million to this project where we're losing our shirts. So we actually paid $1 million for a $300,000 piece of real estate so we could pay out all of the mortgage holders. Wasn't just that, I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe. I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I didn't know how I was going to solve the problem. It was very complicated. There was lots of moving parts. And it actually ended up being 6 years of navigating this difficult relationship, difficult problem, difficult financial scenario while I was still paying my bills, raising my kids, and running my other business. So we came through it okay. Eventually met Joe, and we turned lemons into lemonade. That's where we built Beach Walk Place, which is a beautiful condo there where everybody's done incredibly well. But for 6 years, I went not even sideways. It was hell. I lost the sight in my right eye. I couldn't sleep at night. It was always on the back of my mind. Every time I went to solve the problem, my partner would block me or create some type of scenario where I couldn't move forward. And it was just a very, very difficult season. Mm-hmm. And for anybody that's listening, maybe this is maybe too long-winded now, but the reality is no matter what you're going through, if you keep just persevering and making one move and then figure out the next move, you don't have to figure out all 10 moves at once. Step back from your scenario, look at the big picture, put things in perspective, and make what you think is the next best move. Because that will give you the information and the criteria to determine what your next move should be after that. But the key is you have to keep moving things forward. Lean into the problem. Running from the problem, hiding from the problem, pretending the problem doesn't exist, or throwing your hands up and letting things implode is not the way to deal with a difficult situation. So that's what I learned. So everything I learned in that car when I was in my 20s from Zig Ziglar and Tony Robbins, I had to apply at that stage in my life. Mm-hmm. Put things in perspective, work out every day, date my kids, recognize that health and vitality was the most important thing and it was just a monopoly game. That helped kind of crystallize that reality for me as I kind of navigated that period of my life.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for going into the details and stuff, because I think it's important, for people to see some of the, the downsides of things that can go wrong, and other people are experiencing challenges as well, and like just how you've overcome them. Now, were you doing the same types of things that you're doing now with the working out and the fitness and the spirituality, and like, or did that originate partly from having gone through something like that?
I was, and I think one of the best things you can ever do for your listeners, I listen to founders podcasts, and this is entrepreneurs that build like Estee Lauder and Ferrari and all these people that have built huge companies, and you see the intestinal fortitude, the perseverance, the belief, the conviction, the never giving up. And when I was going through this, Frank Stronach from Magna almost went bankrupt, and I remember reading an article that the first thing he did every morning, in spite of everybody being on his door and the incredible pressure he was under, every morning he went in his gym for an hour and a half and just took care of his body. I remember that vividly, and those are the types of things that I did do. And I did coach my kids. As a matter of fact, my kids, I guess pride is not a good thing, and I don't mean this in a prideful way, but one of the things that my children said, my kids are 36 down to 22, they said to me not too long ago, we had no idea the pressure you were under. We had no idea, because I was coaching their teams and we were going on family vacations. I went on a family vacation down to Florida in the middle of this hell because I knew I wasn't going to get to be with my 4 and 8-year-old again. Mm-hmm. Time I couldn't replace, money I could. So we went on those vacations. We created those memories. I compartmentalized. I put things things in perspective. I lived my priorities. Was it hard? Yes. Did I second guess myself? Sure. But I did step back, put things in perspective, embraced my deathbed mentality, and I also operated with the very, very important. I know it sounds trite. It sounds like a little plaque that people's put on their walls. But all the way through this, I always try to do the right thing. I always try to do the right thing for shareholders, the right thing for suppliers, the right thing for people that believed in me and trust in me. And thankfully my wife was behind me 1,000%. We would have given every penny that we had to make sure that nobody associated with me would lose. And that meant the world to me, because I figured I'll figure it out, but I don't want anybody else to hurt as a result of coming along on the ride with me. And not only did not anybody lose, everybody actually made money. They had no idea. But in my head at the time, my world was crumbling. I'll quickly spin to a funnier, because this was, actually that wasn't funny, but a different type of loss. Joe Ferrara and I set up 3 restaurants called Marca.
Okay.
And we had this dream and Joe's a restaurateur. So for 6 years, we're running 3 restaurants. And on the surface, it all looked great. It looks like, hey, Harry and Joe know what they're doing. We lost $1.6 million running these things. We were actually good at real estate. So we made money in real estate to feed these cockamamie restaurants that were actually costing us a fortune and creating so much stress in our lives. And what I learned through that is, we thought, okay, well, this week, if we do a different menu, if we do different music, if we do a different chef, if we do a different vibe, and every week we're giving ourselves excuses as to why we should keep going. Why should we? Finally, on a drive one day while we were out making money in real estate to pay for these crazy restaurants, I pulled the car over and I said to Joe, we're shutting it down. Like sometimes, persevere as an entrepreneur. But sometimes as an entrepreneur, we have to look in the mirror and say, hold on, I'm going down the wrong road. This isn't working. This isn't in our wheelhouse. We are not good at this. We don't have the resources. We don't have the right people. And you can't run small restaurants from a computer. You have to actually be there physically in the environment 12 hours a day. So we shut it down, licked our wounds, sold all 3 restaurants off, and they're all doing incredibly well. We own the real estate and they're all doing incredibly well, thankfully. But the point is, sometimes you get so caught up in just keeping trying. It's like that book, U Squared, where the fly keeps trying to fly through the window in the summer and eventually dies on the windowsill, but there was an open door 3 feet away. Sometimes a different perspective, a different strategy will create a much bigger result with much lesser effort.
Yeah. I mean, is one of the restaurants the one in Coburg that we went to that people took over? Or is that a different one?
Yeah, Keener at Banner, and I'll tell you, it's one of the best restaurants in Northumberland. It's lined up. Mike and Teresa do an amazing job there. It's a beautiful restaurant, but they're there. And they've got a beautiful relationship with their clients, and they got great chefs, and the consistency in the quality, consistency in the music, consistency in the cleanliness. These are beautiful operators. Running a restaurant's an art form. And unfortunately, I mean, we had the heart for it. We just didn't have the right ingredients in place to make it happen. And we kept fooling ourselves and lying to ourselves that somehow it was going to turn around. And it was a very expensive lesson, but a fun lesson, because it was fun owning the restaurants. I mean, and that's the one thing for me. And again, I want to share, we take it too seriously. Not that I like losing money, but I met a lot of great people. We created a lot of beautiful environments. We created a lot of great experiences for people. I got to play and sing in a lot of these restaurants on a regular basis. And I got to do marketing that was very creative. So I think if you step back and you don't always make money the one-dimensional measuring stick of how well you're doing, and you say, hey, did I have a great experience? Did I meet some great people? Did I expand my library of knowledge? Did I learn something that's going to help me avoid losing $1 million in the future? I mean, there's so many other elements outside of money when you're playing this game of entrepreneurialism that you can benefit from with the right perspective and the right attitude.
Yeah, and you probably got your whole MBA worth right there of all the information, masters of entrepreneurship. But it's thanks for sharing those stories. It is interesting to see your journey and how you've evolved in the next last 40 years. Next year, because you've been around for so long, and I know nobody knows for sure, but like what are some insights that you might have for next year, some opportunities that you think, are going to open up for investors or entrepreneurs and
Anybody that's interested, and
Mhm.
this is, sorry, I have to cut you off there. So here's how we approach it.
Mhm.
If you look at our website and you look at red brick lofts, that is not what you would call like the ideal money-making development. That was a project that we fell in love with, a piece of art on 25 acres that Joe and I fell in love with, and we wanted to create something really special. So money became a byproduct of taking on a project that we believed in, that we were passionate about. And we're very, very proud of that project. And yes, there's lots of equity there. It didn't make a lot of money, but there is lots of equity that we created. And the project long-term will do just fine. But more importantly, we created, in our opinion, we preserved a 100-and-something-year-old building, contributed something to the community, created beautiful places for people to live, and something that's very, very pretty to enjoy on a regular basis. And on top of that, it was a real estate deal. That's a much different approach to what a lot of people do. And why am I sharing that? In your business, before you talk about what deals you're going to do, what's your philosophy? What are you trying to create? How are you trying to serve? How are you trying to contribute to the community? How are you going to add value? Too many people, it's just, oh, well, how much money can we make? How can we get in and out? Just a transaction. Well, I'm not interested in a transaction. And that's not for the community where you're building. If I wouldn't buy something that I'm building, then I don't think you should buy one either. If I'm not proud of what I've built, if I don't think it's contributing to the landscape, contributing to somebody's lifestyle, contributing to the community. Now, people listening might say, that's a pile of crap, Harry. You got to be an entrepreneur, you make money. This is too philosophical for me. That's fine, but I'm living my life and my journey. What helps me deal with the stresses is believing in what I'm doing, being excited about it. Because the emotional attachment to the outcome gives me the disciplines to do the things that I have to do on a regular basis to achieve the ultimate vision. And thankfully, my partner Joe feels the exact same way. So when we embark on something, so we're looking, for example, here's the project we're working on for 2025. We're building in a small community. We've always gone into small communities, but we're in a small community in a very eclectic neighborhood. And we believe that if we build luxury townhomes with elevators, with rooftop patios, that there's somebody out there that's my age or older that wants to get rid of their 5,000 square foot house, move into 3,000 square foot so they can lock the door and go to Bahamas and be stress-free while they're gone. I'm only looking for 3 people. I don't need 300 or 3,000, 3. So Joe and I developed this idea. We spent $50,000, $60,000 on the plans, the architectural, the billboard, the site, and that's our vision. Now, we haven't got a buyer yet. We've been close, but that's what we're looking to break ground on in 2025. Now, if we don't get a sale, we have a contingency plan, and the contingency plan would be, okay, instead of building luxury 3,000 square foot townhomes, we'll convert them into triplexes. I could sell those to some friends of mine overnight, and we'll just go down that road. But my preference, and by the way, I'll make more money in triplexes, just so you understand how our company operates. We will make more money building triplexes. Our love, though, our passion, our interest is in building these beautiful luxury towns, because we believe it's going to contribute to the fabric of downtown, bring people, maybe start a transition for people to create something more special in downtown. To me, that's contributing something that's far going to outlive Harry James. And there's a purity of motive to contribute to the community, and a purity of motive to create a product that nobody else wants to build because there's not enough money in it. So do you see where I'm going there, Sarah? It's kind of, so for your listeners, when you say, okay, what are you going to do to make money in 2025? It's got to go beyond just the transaction and the money.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's well said. Harry, we could keep talking for hours and have you come back and then pick a different topic. And it's so insightful. And, like you've been doing this for so long, so I'm sure you have your fair share of stories and things like that. But I will say, what is the best way if somebody does want to ask you some real estate questions or questions about, the 4 pillars, how do they reach out to you?
HJ@harryjamesenterprises.com is my personal email. And as you know, I have a little entrepreneurial Instagram account called Harry James Live Real, where I do little 60-second philosophical videos, and they can direct message me on there.
And you also have events that you host at the factory in Markham. Do you want to just briefly share a little bit about that? Because I think that's a very cool concept.
Yeah, well, again, funny enough, so the Live Real Factory is birthed out of a failed restaurant, Marco on Main, and we were going to shut it down and put offices in there. And I kind of woke up one night and in the middle of the night and thought to myself, I'm going to take out the kitchen and put in a high-end stage and sound system. So we've created a little boutique event center, and we host entrepreneurial events where you kind of leave your ego and title at the door and take your mask off and make yourself vulnerable, connect with like-minded people, and we'll have entrepreneurs or speakers or videos. We do that on a regular basis at the Live Real Factory, as well as we have comedians and music and fun nights and dances and so on. But yeah, it's a place basically to celebrate what matters most in life, which is our time and our family, and create experiences with people that we care about.
And that's liverealfactory.ca?
liverealfactory.com.
Okay. All right. Amazing. Harry, thank you so much for being on the show. And, thank you for being a great mentor and leading by example. And, always, I think every time you come, there's a lot of people that feel very motivated that reach out to me afterwards as well. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge.
Sarah, thank you. It's always a pleasure being with you. I appreciate the opportunity being on very much.
Thanks so much for listening to Where Should I Invest with your host, Sarah Larby. Make sure to listen in next time. We'll catch you on the next episode of Where Should I Invest?